Welcome. I am your host, Tracy Bethea, and I'm so excited to get you up close and personal for a conversation with, well, he is a Grammy Award winner, multiple acclaimed national saxophonist. It's Kirk Whalum. Hi, Kirk.
Hello, what's going on? So good to see you, Tracy.
I am so glad to have you here. You are such an amazing vessel. And Memphis son, that's what I'm proud about, your Memphis roots. Let's talk about that a little bit. How were you influenced in music?
Sure. Well, Memphis is kind of like, it's one of those elements in the blood that tends to show up. You can take the person out of Memphis, but you absolutely can't take the Memphis out of the person. And though I left here very early, just right out of high school, just thinking I would never, ever move back home, wherever I went, people identified me with Memphis. And as that turned out to be a blessing, I think the seed was planted in my head, what if you were to move back home, you know? So long story short, that's what we did 10 years ago. But starting out here, looking back on that, Tracy, was such a blessing, you know, to be able to kind of just turn to the left or turn to the right, walk forward or backward, you're going to run into some Memphis soul. And that is in every element, whether it's the food or the way people walk, the way people talk. And growing up in church and just always being around music, especially gospel music, as a PK, in the home of a preacher, music was everywhere. And it was that music that it's so hard to pin down, like, well, this is, gospel, or this is folk, or this is country, whatever. It's just in the environment here. And it just shows up in every style of music, pop, it doesn't matter. You turn on the radio and you're gonna hear the Memphis influence, whether it's, directly credited that way or not, it is absolutely Memphis.
And with your broad appeal with gospel, with pop, with R&B, you started in the church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, was the saxophone your first instrument?
Saxophone was not. I started playing whatever I could get my hands on. I think that the type of musician I am is sort of like, cut out of a mold, like this is who you are, long before you get to how they'll manifest, right? So for me, eventually that was saxophone, and I was 12. But by then, man, I was playing on the drums, I was trying to play the keyboard and the organ and just figuring little stuff out, and I had a bass guitar. My father and mother both worked for the postal system in addition to the ministry, and my father's workmate, gave him this bass guitar that was in his attic when he found out that his son was a musician. So yeah, I had a bass, whatever I could get my hands on. But at 12 is when I started the saxophone, and it was partially because my uncle Peanuts, my father's oldest brother, played the saxophone. So though he lived in St. Louis. So yeah, I think it was destiny.
And so how did you move from the church, college, Texas, how did you move to the music scene as a national recording artist?
Sure. Well, I don't think that I was ever, musically speaking, the aesthetic in my head was always, world, it's just that it was all informed by my experience and exposure to gospel music. And even I think, fast forward, I'm sitting in the studio with Quincy Jones, and he's expecting, without saying it, to hear that Memphis church thing come out, In fact, I remember this particular song was, he did a series, and it was called Sax in the Garden, The Secret Garden. But then he did a version of that called Sax in the Garden. Mm-hmm. And so again, when I hear the music start, I'm gonna basically preach, through my instrument. That's who I am. That's what I'm always gonna do. It's just that in my born, as they say, it was all about the music that was out there. I was hearing rock. I was hearing, R&B and pop, Jackson 5, and blah blah blah. So that's where I ended up. And I never thought at the beginning, that I would end up touring with a big pop star, with Whitney Houston. But still, what I was doing was reflecting what I came up hearing, whether it was the Bar-Kays or Hank Crawford, or for that matter, Aretha Franklin singing gospel.
And it definitely comes pure. It's so pure in your music. And you mentioned, I think about even working with Barbra Streisand. You've worked with just such a spectrum of people. Who were some of your musical influences?
Sure. Well, my very first influence was a lady named Barbara Westbrook. And Barbara Westbrook ended up marrying a now a dear friend and mentor, Ozzie Smith. So she became Barbara Westbrook Smith. And she was the organist and choir director at the church Olivet, as you well know. Growing up at that church, she was my biggest influence, and the people that she would bring into my musical sphere, whether it was, the Hawkins brothers, Edwin Hawkins, or whether it was, I guess all the big gospel acts, Oh Happy Day, all that stuff I was hearing. But ultimately, Hank Crawford became my big mentor, though I didn't meet him until I actually met him in my senior year of high school because his daughter graduated with me, so he was home for that. But really to spend time with him later, way later on, as a solo artist myself. But Hank Crawford, Memphis owned, lived in New York all the last years of his life. He was an international star, but the Memphis Soul, they called him Mr. Soul. Mr. Blues, right? And that all of that came through very clearly to me when I was first really getting my head around what is it that I want to do on this instrument? How do I want to sound? And it was Hank Crawford. It was the gospel artist that I was hearing.
And what is the Kirk Whalum sound?
Yeah, it really is kind of just Memphis gospel soul coming through, whatever it is I'm playing. And I think, there's something to, I know some great saxophonists and great musicians, instrumentalists who are kind of chameleonic, right? They can become whatever is needed in that setting. Ernie Watts is a great example of that, great saxophonist. Gerald Albright, people who, they can play, here's the setting, I'll change what I do to be really excellent and meet the need of that particular thing. I pretty much am who I am, and so people would call me for that. It's like this soul thing that I'm doing. It's more or less a gospel singer coming through my instrument. I say I'm a frustrated singer because that's really what I want to accomplish, to impact people deeply with these melodies and with this sound that comes out. And that, fast forwarding again, you hadn't asked me this yet, but that's one thing I remember about, this big tenure I had with Whitney Houston for 7 years, is that I would play something, she would hear it, and it would immediately snatch her back to her own upbringing in the church. I could tell there was almost a, physical, change that would happen, and she would sing differently. And so again, it is the one thing that I am and that I've always been, that I will continue hopefully to do with excellence, I hope.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But since you brought up Whitney, we definitely wanted to talk. I want to talk, how did you connect with Whitney Houston? Because people, well, I know you were so much more. You traveled with her. You were the chaplain, I believe, of the group. How did you all connect?
And I guess, ad hoc chaplain. It wasn't official, but she did call me Bishop. That was my nickname. But actually, the way I met Whitney is because I had hired a bass player when I first moved to LA, and I had been living in Houston. Now I'm in LA, and I have to sort of meet different musicians and to play the local clubs, right? Because I had my own band in Houston for all those years. So I left those guys, and now I'm in LA, and I got to start over. So this bass player, one of the first people recommended to me was Ricky Minor. And people know Ricky Minor from, American Idol and from all kinds of stuff, the White House music series and stuff. But Ricky at that time was not that guy. He was just Whitney Houston's bass player. But he was one of the bass players who did a lot of stuff in town. And so when I hired him to play this jazz gig, little did I know that he was kind of, auditioning me because he had just gotten promoted to musical director for Whitney Houston.
Wow.
And so, but he didn't tell me that night. He told me the next day. He called me and said, man, I wanted to tell you this, but I thought I would wait until the night was over. I just got the musical director gig with Whitney Houston, which is a big deal. Especially, again, this is during the season when she was about to go to the pinnacle, And he said, man, she has sanctioned me to, to put together a show enough band for her. Like, she had a good band. But I told her that, if I take this gig, I'm gonna break the bank, and we're gonna hire the very best. And that's what he did. And he said, man, would you be interested in playing? And by the way, the first answer was no, because I wasn't really.
Wow.
Yeah, because I'm making records, I'm doing my own thing. It's, my trajectory's here, here's Whitney. But I thought, I want to stay steady and, be me, But, he told me how much it paid. And,
Makes a difference.
That was the difference. And it was steady money. See, that's another thing as a young father and husband, you're like, wow. We've never known where our money is going to come from for the next, months and stuff. Never.
Right. Yeah. That's the life of a musician.
And so that was a big deal. And again, when I rethought it, I'm like, well, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing during this time, to be able to back someone up. Again, so I was in the front of the stage and I was doing my thing, a much smaller stage, right? But still, it was what I felt like I should be doing. So now I had this opportunity to work for someone else famous, to be out of the limelight so much and really kind of pump her up.
Absolutely.
And man, I'll tell you, it was an amazing experience. And Ricky is a dear friend even to this day. And now my son is playing bass with Kelly Clarkson.
Wow.
My son Kyle, yeah. And so Ricky gave him his first bass. So the cycle continues.
And so what was it like? The biggest movie, The Bodyguard.
Yeah.
And here you are with the saxophone solo on one of her biggest songs, on one of the biggest songs. What was that like for you? Right.
So the doing of it was actually kind of routine in the sense that when you're with a big star like that, you just get this itinerary, I guess it was emailed, yeah. And, I'll be here on this date, and then you're off on this date, and you're traveling on that day, blah, blah, blah. And we knew she had done this movie. In fact, at the time, I was living in Paris. Long story. We thought that she's doing this movie, she's having a baby. Okay, now it's time for me to take my money and run. Basically, let's do something that we wanted to do. And we wanted to move to Paris. So we did. We sold everything, took our 4 kids and moved to Paris. But then the Bodyguard thing happened and everything changed, right? But just to say that the day doing that session was like just a lot of other things that we had done. Just so happens, again, there's a room full of cameras, and there was always rooms full of cameras, but this we knew we were doing for this movie, and we were playing live to the film as she was singing live to the film, which was a big deal. They did not want her to do that, and she had to argue with them like, I really need to do this live. And but she couldn't articulate why. She's like, I just do. And they were like, yeah, Whitney, that's really not
how we do with the film.
We can't do that. Yeah, and finally she acquiesced. She said, all right, fine, do it however you want to do it. She said, but if I sing it, I'm gonna sing it live to the film, and I'm gonna sing it with my band playing live so they had to deal with it. And sure enough, yes, the saxophone solo that I played is the sax solo that's been heard by more people than any saxophone solo in history. So
I can believe that.
Well,
I Will Always Love You was a huge.
Oh yeah, but I had a hard time believing it because from my perspective, saxophone, I think John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Charlie Parker, and the solos that we saxophonists revere, would think, well, that had to, giant steps or whatever. No, because pop music goes all over the world as opposed to jazz, maybe sort of one, element. But yeah, that was an amazing experience.
And then you also even played at her funeral, her homegoing celebration.
Sure did. And the thing about playing at her funeral is that, we played, it was a long service, so we played a lot, but then when they took her body out, they played the record, I Will Always Love You. And so we just were able to kind of take in that moment, which of course was very, very sad. And then for me, I heard the message of that song for the first time. Like I literally heard that, not literally, but I heard that song for the first time. Because when I heard it that time, I got it. I'm like, this is why she had to do this live, and she had to just channel the Spirit of God into this song, because this message is not just love song message. This is like God saying, listen, literally in my head at that moment, I was envisioning Jesus speaking to his disciples, singing to his disciples, because he had tried to explain to them what had to happen. And they were like, that's crazy. I mean, that's not going to happen. They are not going to take you. First of all, we won't let them take you from us. But if they do, they're sure not going to, beat you and torture you and then nail your hands to a tree. But he, in his frustration and my little epiphany, he sang to them, if I should stay, I'd only be in the way. So I'll go, and yet I know that I'll think of you every step of the way. Every step of the way, right? We talk about the Via Dolorosa, which is a way of suffering, right? Every step is just agony. So he's saying, man, I'm going to think of you all every step of the way, and I will always love you. So for me, I was a part of something, because I was, that was in 1992, I think, but somewhere in that area. And man, since that time, I look back on that as not so much about 7 years of touring and tour buses and a lot of pizza. I think of it as this big spiritual thing that happened. Absolutely. And then Whitney was gone.
Yeah.
Like she's gone now.
Yeah. Wow. Let's talk about some of your projects. I love the latest love covers, and you've done some working with Babyface and Donny Hathaway. Well, and of course, we've got to talk about the series, The Gospel According to Jazz. Do you have a favorite CD? Does Kirk Whalum get in the car and listen to his own CD?
So the way that process is, like #Love Covers, when I was finished with that, and when we were, in the meetings for, promotional marketing stuff that you know about, during that time, I listened to myself a lot, because I'm like, listening for every little thing, and I hear this, I would have done this differently. I like the way that went, but this I'd like to redo, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, at the time of every release is when I listen to me. But then after about 2 months of listening to me, I'm done. Like, I don't want to hear it at all. And then later on, I'll hear it, maybe years later, I'll hear something, so, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. But yeah, the Gospel According to Jazz series, its own amazing story. But right now, I'm just finishing and now in marketing and promotional meetings for a project called Humanité, which is French for humanity. And it's a whole big, gigantic, move in my life. That, I was about to turn 60, and I thought, you know what? How can I do what I do and expand it in such a way that it's global and still be relevant, but not look like I'm trying to be young? Like I am 60, and I'm glad about that.
You look good.
Bless you.
Good.
But the thing is, in this, project is I decided to do collaborations with artists from, in this case, 8 different countries, including this one, and 16 artists, and many young. Some are #1 artists in their region, like for instance, Indonesia, the #1 artist is Afghan with no H. And Afghan has 9 million followers on social media, and but he's my boy. It's like I'm Uncle Kirk. I met him in Indonesia and Jakarta at the Java Jazz Festival, and I sat in with him, in front of 5,000 screaming girls, and he's 24, I think. And so, yeah, that's kind of the type of thing that I'm doing on Humanité. And what we decided to do is to document the whole thing. So the making of that project, as well as just sort of narrative, similarities between this endeavor, basically, showing people how the same we are, no matter how different we are and how far apart we are, that narrative with what Martin King called the beloved community. And so being from Memphis, I get to speak on that because I was here when he was killed. And in the documentary, Humanité, we talk about the making of the record, but mostly we talk about those types of things. Like, here I am in Tokyo recording with an artist who you actually heard live, I almost said Kumiko. So I have several friends in Japan I record with, but the pianist whose name is going to come to me in a second, Keiko Matsui.
Okay.
And so here I am recording with her, and we're up and down the streets of Tokyo. Next thing I know, I'm in Paris recording with a Nigerian artist named Asha, who is huge. She's 30. I think, her reach is all over Europe and all over Africa. And this amazing life force that comes from her. And I get to be, again, Uncle Kirk in this setting where this American jazz musician, older jazz musician, I get to collaborate with these great artists on Humanité.
Wow.
Yeah, so the documentary will hopefully be out sometime in March, and then the record will come out.
Wow. Congratulations on your brass note.
Thank you.
On the Beale Street Walk of Fame. How was that? That was absolutely amazing.
A very big deal. I was a part of the celebration of one of my big mentors, Charles Lloyd. When he got a brass note on Beale Street, and I'm thinking, man, wouldn't that be something that if that would have happened before I'm, before I'm dead, and because he was 75 when that happened, and I was one of the ones saying, yeah, without Charles Lloyd, there's no Kirk Whalum, or there's no Kenny G, or there's no Grover Washington, because Charles Lloyd, being a straight ahead traditional jazz musician, profound virtuoso of a saxophonist, to then make this song that ends up kind of being the ground zero, the starting point of what people call smooth jazz. It's like that was a Memphis guy, Charles Lloyd.
Oh, wow.
And it's called Forest Flower. Then like Google Forest, or go to YouTube and look at Forest Flower. It's just the most amazing song. So yeah, when he got a brass note on Beale Street, I thought, man, that's so amazing, and it's so well deserved. And then, a couple of years later, people, come to me and say, we want to give you a brass.
And it is so well deserved.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Let me ask you this: who would you like to work with as part of doing maybe a solo, an artist that you would like to sing? I know you work well with, oh my God, Layla Hathaway. Who are some of the artists you haven't worked with that you'd like to work with?
Yeah, so there's a new artist named Candace Springs, Kandace, who I'm just, man, her music just washed over me like just a beautiful wave of peace and purpose and beauty. So Candace, I actually have spoken with her. I was trying to get her on my Gospel According to Jazz Christmas tour, and she was interested, but we ended up touring. On that tour, we had another special guest, Sheila E., which was amazing. But Candace Springs, I would say, embodies, beside, again, Humanité, where I literally collaborate with some of these artists that I wanted to, get in their space. But Candace is one I haven't collaborated with.
That you'd like to.
Yeah, I knew her dad, by the way. Her dad, Scat Springs, was a Nashville musician.
So as we wrap up, what's in store for Kirk Whalum?
Yes.
Future projects, I know you mentioned that. What's in store? What can we expect from Kirk Whalum?
Yeah, sure. Really right now it is about Humanité and about, telling that story. And we want to take it to some of the film festivals, and I'm really proud of it. It's a beautiful piece, and it's very poignant because I think a lot of the art that's being made right now, including myself, in many ways is a reaction to a lot of the negativity and prejudice and racism and just sort of, hyper badness that's going on around us. So, I want to do more of that. And Humanité is where my heart is at right now. And by the way, we're talking now about or folks are talking about doing a TV series out of Humanité, which is, by the way, kind of, you know, an Anthony Bourdain kind of approach, like, you know, what he did with culinary arts, you know, what he did with food, where you go to all these places, and he proved that people are more alike than different. It's just that they can be so very different in terms of those specifics, but we're all the same. We have the same need to be accepted, etc.
Wow.
We want to do that with music. So that's kind of where I'm headed.
Kirk, you are absolutely amazing. Please tell our viewers how they can stay connected with you, social media.
Yes. Well, the nice thing about having a name like Kirk, by the way, means church, and Whalum, Kirk Whalum, W-H-A-L-U-M, is that I can just use that. So if you type that into whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you know, YouTube.com, you know, it's all my name. And you know, these are ways that people can, I would like to have your audience to help me get the word out, because really word of mouth is a lot stronger, especially with projects like this that aren't, there's no bells and whistles and naked dancing girls, you know. This is something that's deeper and a lot more important. You know, it just what happens that it's great music, and a lot of it is really, really bumping, you know, like you got Afro pop and all that. Just sign on to Kirk Whalum and we'll help me share it.
KirkWhalum.com. Sign on all social media. Kirk, thank you so much for sharing with us on today. You are an amazing vessel, a gift to the world, and we wish you nothing but sincere, great success, continued success.
Well, the very same to you, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you so much. I hope that you have truly enjoyed. I know you have enjoyed. Be sure to follow him. And if he ever comes near a stage near you, it is a must-see. Thank you so much for joining me with my conversation with Kirk Whalum. I'm Tracy Bethea.